When I was around 13, my auntie and uncle used to have a seasonal campsite at a smallish lake about 3 hours away from our town. It was nothing fancy, but it was a cheap summer vacation spot, and my whole family used to go up there lots. I often brought my friend, let's call her Kay, to stay with us, as I'm a lonely-ass only child, and I valued the company. Since the campground was so small, especially the seasonal sites, it really felt like home. We knew many people at the lake by name, and they knew us too. Most of the campground staff had grown accustomed to Kay and I riding our bikes around, and eating ice cream, and even terrorizing the frogs down by the water, and they were all very friendly to us. Like I said, it felt like home. It's also probably worth mentioning that both Kay and I grew up in a very small Canadian town, one where everyone waves when you drive by on the street, no one locks their doors, and everyone is your friend. But moving on. One day we were down by the water around sunset, and we were sitting on the dock, dipping our toes in the water and just about to head back to our campsite for supper. We were tired from a day of roasting in the sun, biking, and catching frogs, when a disheveled man, maybe 40 or 50 years old, approached the dock behind us. Being the friendly young rural girls we were, we both waved hello and exchanged some small talk with him. He continued to approach us, chatting politely about the weather and other small talky type shit. He was wearing a stained beer t-shirt, one of those ones that you used to get for free in a box of beer in the early 2000s, and dirty jeans. He had straggly, greasy hair and was missing a tooth. For a lot of people, this might immediately set off red flags for you, but again, we were from a small town, and this dude looked like half of my dad's side of the family, so neither of us were fazed. During the course of our conversation, he sat down beside me on the dock, dipping his feet in the water alongside ours. He continued to chat with us, asking what we had been doing that day, where our campsite was, and who our parents were, that kind of shit. He said he knew my parents and that they were friends. We probably should have been smarter than to continue to talk with him, but being an only child, I had always felt comfortable chatting with adults, and I didn't bat an eye at the conversation. Plus, he knew my parents, so what could go wrong? Eventually, he started asking us about boating. He pointed to a boat off the dock, a fancy one with a gold glittery finish, and he asked if we liked it. We did. He told us that it was his boat, and that it was the fastest and coolest boat on the lake. He asked us if we'd ever been to any of the secret islands on the lake. We said no. I remember thinking how odd this was, as the lake was truly not that large or impressive, so a secret island seemed strange, but also hella enticing. He told us he owned one of the islands, and its name was Zeke. He asked us if we wanted to go to see Zeke with him. We hesitated slightly, but ultimately we wanted to go for a boat ride. By now, the sun was nothing but an orange glow, slipping into the horizon. We were just standing up to go towards the boat when my uncle came down the hill to the lake in his truck. He honked the horn and yelled at us to get our asses in the truck. We were supposed to be home by dark, and now we were in deep shit. He threw our bikes in the box and we got in the truck. My uncle quizzically asked us who the man we were talking to was, and we told him he was some guy that my parents knew. And we also told him that he was going to take us to his secret island in his cool boat. When Kay pointed out the boat to my uncle, he told us that the boat belonged to Phil, which was the owner of the convenience store at the lake. He then began to lecture us about why agreeing to go on a boat ride with the perfect stranger is not a good idea. He confirmed my suspicion that there were no islands on the small lake. We both began to feel kind of freaked out, which only continued when my parents told me about the man, and they were sure they didn't know him. My mom lectured the shit out of us and told us he probably wanted to wear our skin like a mask. In the summer of 2007, I was 13, and my mother decided to take me and my brother, who was 18 at the time, on a cruise to the Bahamas and Key West. With this being my first cruise, I was very excited, but also nervous at the same time. I was very shy and a bit overweight, and I mostly kept my hair in front of my eyes. I had always seemed to get unwanted attention growing up, considering my body matured much quicker than everyone else my age. I was 13 and barely 5 feet tall. So we took a plane to Florida and we went to a hotel near the ocean, because the ship left in the morning. My mother was a severe alcoholic at the time, which made this trip all the more unpleasant. She got smashed that night and she didn't come home until really late, leaving my brother and I at the hotel alone. My brother was also suffering in his own ways from my mother's abusive tendencies, so we basically left each other alone and took care of ourselves. Anyhow, we get on the ship the next morning and I am in complete amazement. There is a pool on the deck and tons of kids my age, though I was too shy to introduce myself. My mother signed us up to go snorkeling off the coast of Key West in the morning, and I was really excited. Nothing bad happened that night, and I had a hard time sleeping because I was so excited. In the morning, my family climbs onto this little boat that drives us into the middle of this reef. Before we go in, a man sits next to me. He is really tall with blonde curly hair, and he introduces himself and holds out his hand for me to shake. "Hello, my name is Paul." I smile nervously and shake his hand in return to be nice. "Hi, my name is Madeline." He smiles and I can tell he's staring at my breasts, which makes me very uncomfortable, but I was just so shy that I didn't say anything. I can also see my brother watching from a few seats away. "How old are you?" asks Paul. "I'm 13. "No way," he says skeptically, looking me up and down. I smile and nod. "I am." He smiles back and says, "Cool, well, I'm 18. "That's cool," I said nervously, obviously uncomfortable that a man my brother's age would approach me and not my brother. The guide for the snorkeling now says we can get in the ocean, so my family hops up and dives in. It was really cool. I saw a lot of exotic fish and we got the chance to be in the middle of a fish cyclone. And I even got to see an octopus. When I would surface every now and then, I always noticed Paul in close proximity to me, watching me and smiling. I didn't understand what he wanted, but that night I understood. Once we got back onto the main ship, Paul called up to me and asked if I wanted to hang out with him later. Me being the stupid 13-year-old who doesn't know how to say no to people, I agreed. He said he would meet me at my room at 8 o'clock. I showered and got ready, trying to wear my most reclusive and conservative clothing that I had packed, which unfortunately wasn't very covering of my body. I wore a swimsuit under a pair of shorts. I had brought no pants and a big baggy t-shirt. Paul soon arrived and he took me to the main deck. He grabbed my hand and I had a horrible gut feeling that something bad was going to happen to me. Once we made it to the deck, we ran into my mother, who of course was sloppy drunk. She greeted us happily, noticing us holding hands and smiled, sending us on our merry way. I gave her the most terrified look I could muster up, without him noticing, but she was too drunk to notice. Paul soon led me to the hot tubs. There were 2, and he told me to slip into one with him. I took off my shorts, but I wanted to keep my shirt on, so as I started climbing into the hot tub, he protested. "Hey, take off the shirt, silly." I hesitated, but did as he told me. He splashed me a few times and I noticed something in his eyes that I had never seen before as he looked at me. He said, "You look hot when you're wet." This statement made me extremely uncomfortable and I didn't say anything. I then saw a group of young boys heading towards the hot tub, and I just prayed that they would get into ours, but they didn't, and they got into the other one. I was really starting to panic. I was shocked that no one was helping me when it was so obvious how distressed and uncomfortable I was. "Hey, come with me, I want to show you something cool," he said as he stood up, grabbing my hand. He led me up some stairs and across a walkway until we came up to a door that said, "For 18 and older, and no one past 7 p.m. But it was 10 o'clock now, and he opened the door and pulled me in. The deck was completely deserted, and the stars were shining bright. If it weren't for Paul there, I probably would have loved the sight. I now realize that he has 2 towels and lays them out, sitting down and then motioning me to come sit with him, and I obey. We lay looking at the stars for a bit when he starts asking me some personal questions. "Have you kissed anybody on this cruise yet?" "No," I replied. "Why not?" He laughs at me. I shrug and say, "Well, I don't know, I'm not really interested in that." He smiles and laughs. "Well, I've tried to get as many girls as I can from this trip." At this point, I freeze. I don't know what to do or say when suddenly he rolls on top of me and starts to kiss me. I'm petrified and I don't move or object. I was that scared. His hands start to touch my sides and I suddenly can move again, jumping back. "What time is it? I've got to go," I manage to stutter. I get up and start walking away, fast, but he manages to catch up to me. By now I am in the elevator on my way back to the room. "Wait," he shouts. "Can I see you tomorrow?" "No," I answer just before the door closes. I made it back to the room, and my brother was watching TV, and my mother still wasn't back. I took a 3-hour shower and then went to bed. The next day, yes, there's more. We finally reached the Bahamas. As my family and I are exiting the boat, guess who we run into? That's right, Paul. My mom greets him as if she's been friends with him her entire life, and he ends up spending the whole day with us. With my mom not picking up my discomfort and fear, and him following me uncomfortably close everywhere we went. My mom even paid for his fresh crab dinner, as if rewarding him for nearly molesting me. Once the long day is finally over, we head back to the boat at about 7 o'clock. Paul, of course, asks if I want to go to the casino with him later, and I politely decline, telling him that I was too tired and sleepy. The next day was the trip back to Florida, and I didn't leave my room all day. I was relieved to not run into him once we reached land again, but the memory of him will forever haunt me. So this happened yesterday. My family, wife, kids, and in-laws, and I just returned from a pontoon cruise for the evening. It was later than usual, so I sent the wife up on the golf cart with the kids and in-laws to get them some dinner while I covered up the boat. About halfway through covering up the boat, I noticed someone halfway across the cove in the water, and she appeared to be maybe in distress. She wasn't making progress swimming one way or the other and occasionally going underwater. There were people on the opposite shoreline yelling at her, but I couldn't tell what they were saying. So I yell, asking if she needs help, and she says yes. I call my wife and tell her to come down on the cart, and that someone was in the water and needs help, and that I'm going in. I put on a life jacket and grab the throw cushion from the boat. I swim out to the person and pass off the throw cushion. She appears to be out of breath. First thing that she says to me is, "I'm topless." I respond with, okay, but are you alright? I also immediately think to myself, 1, my friends are never going to believe this, and 2, what is my wife going to think with a topless woman swimming to the shore with me? She then says that she's running from her boyfriend who is messed up. She also asks if it's shallow enough to touch yet, and it definitely wasn't, so I help her to the dock where my wife meets us. She tells my wife, "I'm sorry, but I don't have a shirt on." Again, my wife just asks if she's okay, and she tells us the boyfriend story again. Sure enough, as she gets out of the water, she is topless, but she is carrying a white t-shirt that she quickly throws on. She then immediately begins running to shore. At the same time, we notice a pontoon cruising towards our dock, yelling at us. At first, I think this must be her boyfriend chasing her, and we are in the middle of some domestic dispute. They quickly get closer, and I realize it's 2 sheriff deputies who flagged a pontoon down to carry them across the lake. As they are jumping onto the dock, we noticed the girl had just jumped into our golf cart and was riding away on it. Apparently she was allegedly involved in a string of burglaries, and the boyfriend she was running from was the cops. I had unknowingly aided her swim, crossed the lake to escape, and she used our golf cart as a getaway. The cops chased her for a while through the night, tracking her down once more, but she escaped again. We looked all day for the golf cart today, but no luck. I notified insurance and the theft around lunch. And about an hour ago, someone notified us through social media that it was parked behind a house in a neighborhood over. So we recovered the cart and it seems okay. They put more warrants out for the suspect and are still looking for her.